Hello and welcome to the ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn. And today, we've got a few things to cover. Obviously, we will be going over a certain 3-day event that happened this past weekend, but we also have some news in the college basketball front, the Sporting Kansas City front, the Kansas City Current front, and the Royals as well. But yes, we will be getting to some draft stuff. Just hang tight, hang with me. But got a lot to talk about today. Should be a pretty loaded show for y'all. And yeah, just get right into it. Apologies if my voice is a little scratchy. I had a wedding last night that I yelled quite a bit at. But it was a lot of fun. Congratulations to my good friend Patrick Spanier and his new wife Alicia. It was great seeing you two and just everybody that was there. It was a great time. We had it at the KU Memorial Union, and it was just, it was a ton of fun. So good to be back in Lawrence for a little bit. But now to business. Let's get started. Alrighty, in terms of college basketball, we always start here, so that's where we're starting today. Again, draft news will come, I promise. But, Primo Spears, we'll start with KU. Primo Spears, a KU target, transferred from Georgetown, just committed to Florida State this past weekend, so he is officially off the market. For KU, I don't think it's a huge loss. I didn't love Primo Spears to KU. He doesn't fit the Bill Self mold per se. Again, he's, like I said in my articles, he's a 40-30 shooter. Doesn't necessarily have that Bill Self guard build either. And overall, I think what the Jayhawks are looking for right now is a Jalen Wilson replacement, as well as a big man. I think those are kind of their focuses right now, especially with the commitment of Arterio Morris. That's a big time commitment. You've got that other shooting guard that can just ball out, much like Nick Timberlake, who also committed. And overall, I think they're just looking for that Jalen Wilson replacement. So whoever that may be, I know that they're looking at a couple of guys for that. I can't remember off the top of my head who exactly, but I do know that they're definitely looking for that wing guard forward hybrid guy that can just be plug and play. So KU's still going to be on the lookout for that. Speaking of Arterio Morris, though, they did land a commitment from him this past weekend as well. He's transferred from Texas, did pretty well in the minutes that he did play. It's quite similar, actually, to Frank Mason's freshman year. When you look at the stats, I mean, it's eerily similar. But Arterio Morris will be definitely in that starting rotation. I think he will be a plug-and-play guy that will make an immediate impact. So that's a good pickup. And in terms of the Hunter Dickinson news, there's still hope. I think it's between KU and Kentucky at this point. We were talking, actually, some of my college friends and I, about who exactly will pick him up. And, he did take a visit to Villanova this past weekend. But overall, I think that was just kind of to humor the guys that he's friends with there, basically. And I think it's between KU and UK at this point. So still hope for Dickinson. I know a lot of people are just like, well, why didn't he commit over the visit? That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign necessarily. These things do take time, and KU just has to be patient overall. What is, however, an example of potentially being too patient is the situation going on at Kansas State right now. They definitely got a gut punch with Max Abmas committing to Texas, a conference rival. That's not the most ideal situation. I know that Max Abmas was crystal ball to them for a long, long time. But I guess Abmas just changed his mind once he visited Texas because that's basically when it happened. A potential Abmas substitute, I guess, would be Hofstra transfer Aaron Estrada. He averaged 20 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, 4.3 assists. I would say that's a pretty plug and play guy for Kansas State and a potential Noel replacement, much like how I described Abmas. But overall, I think not getting Max Abmas hurts because, I mean, you were looking at LJ Cryer as well. And I think it's kind of. Jerome Tang said in an interview that, these things take time, you got to be patient, etc., etc. And while I agree with that, I think he's being far too timid with the recruiting process. I get that, he's taking photos in the airports and all that and beating recruits and blah, 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 blah. But honestly, so far, it's only been for show. You have to be able to get these guys to commit, especially since you lost your best player first and foremost, and then you lost a couple of key bench guys in Masood. Desi Sills is graduating, and a couple other guys. So honestly, I think Tang needs to pick it up a little bit. I know it is still early, but overall, I think he's been way too timid and just needs to pick it up there. As for Mizzou, Nick Honor's back officially, which is huge for them. I mean, Nick Honor performed massively for them and is a huge contributor to why they had such a turnaround. So that's a big time get back. As far as the transfer portal goes for them, they did add a transfer from Campbell named Jesus Paralero. I don't have a whole lot of information on him because he played at Campbell. But overall, I mean, you got Caleb Grill too, which is nice. Potentially Matthew Cleveland could be headed there. I've heard some rumblings of that. He's a transfer from Florida State. Overall, though, Missouri's lost a lot of guys, and I think again, Kevin Gates is doing what Jerome Tang should be doing. But this being said, he needs to start targeting big men because that's what Missouri needs right now is a front court, and they just don't have it right now. So overall, I think focusing on the front court, getting Matthew Cleveland to commit are kind of two of Missouri's biggest needs right now, and I think Dennis Gates is going to do a great job there. I believe I said Kevin Gates earlier. My apologies. That is a rapper. That is not Missouri basketball's head coach. My apologies. But hey, moving on. Let's talk about some SKC news next. All right, let's talk about what's happening with Sporting Kansas City. It was an absolute disaster last night against Montreal. 2-0 at half. You kept that scoreline, yeah, but it was just an ugly, ugly game from what I saw in the highlights. People were chanting "Fire Vermes." Just not a great showing at all. And you got a 3-0 win, but against a team that's in a soccer league, I don't think anybody has even heard of. Most people, at least, have even heard of. In the Tulsa Athletic Club, in the U.S. Open Cup. I mean, congrats on advancing into the U.S. Open, but uh, I mean, Montreal's one of the MLS's worst clubs. And yeah, Sporting Kansas City is right now too, but Montreal historically is one of the MLS's worst clubs, and you got just an absolute drubbing by them. I mean, Sporting didn't even control possession, and that's how bad it was. Because normally when we see Sporting Kansas City lose this year, at least they control possession. They didn't even control possession this time. It was just an absolute butt kicking across the board, and I will say Sporting just needs to find an answer right now. And I took to Reddit to ask what exactly that answer would be. I got some pretty colorful responses. Let's just say that. Let me tap in there and give me just a second. Put that up here. Here we go. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, just yikes. I'm trying to pull it up right now. My apologies. It's just kind of being annoying at the moment, but overall, the general consensus of those Reddit comments were Vermes needs to be fired. There needs to be something done about this aging core of players. Johnny Russell commented. He commented something. I can't remember for the life of me what exactly. Okay, I actually have it pulled up here. We just don't look like anything. Oh boy. We just don't look anything like the team that we were. I genuinely don't know how to fix it. That's, and I believe that's from, let's see, Aaron Ladd, who was at the game last night, and if you go check his Twitter account, you can see the general consensus of what it is like to be a Sporting Kansas City fan right now. It's rough. I mean, Sporting just has no answer to what's going on, and yeah, maybe it is fire Vermes. Maybe it is time for a culture change. As a person that doesn't keep up too much, probably should keep up a little more with Sporting KC and the MLS. What it looks like to me is it's a club that's in need of a culture change. It's a club that needs to stop being so conservative with who has jobs, who is in these starting positions, and etc. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to go down this path of just absolute suckitude. And it's tough to say because Sporting has had this winning tradition for a while now. I mean, they're widely considered one of the MLS's best clubs and best ran clubs until very recently, and there's good reason why they've fallen out of that favor. Because it's no longer well ran. It's no longer guys putting their best foot forward, and no longer an organization that shows proactivity. No longer an organization that makes changes for the betterment of the club rather than the betterment of people that have been associated with the club for a long time. Peter Vermes, I get it. He's not the lone problem, but overall, I think the general consensus is that it's time for him to go. And it's time for Sporting KC to rebuild this culture and rebuild this team around the young guys that are a part of this team and the culture that supports that development. Because that's how, SKC got here in the first place, was supporting a culture of youth development, was supporting guys that came through the system rather than transfers and free agents that really don't make a ton of impact. Nothing for nothing, but I mean, look at Ben Sweat. I mean, the guy played 5 games and then dipped. It's inexcusable. And there needs to be some sort of effort shown in order to. I, I again, I am a casual sporting and MLS soccer guy. I go to my girlfriend with a lot of soccer questions and her friends. But overall, again, as someone that's been around the the sports world for a while, this seems like a team that is in severe need of organizational change and culture change. And that's just kind of the gist of it. So overall, I agree with the fire Vermes chance. I think that's the first step you really got to take. The guy has 2 jobs with the club. I think he's GM and coach. So it overall falls on him for making those first initial changes, and he has not made those changes. So therefore, it falls on the organization itself to be proactive and to find a new coach that will foster those changes. So, moving on to more positive soccer news, the Kansas City Current got their first home W and got their second home W not even like 10 minutes ago against Gotham in a 2-0 victory. So things are looking up, more or less. The fluidity is there, the chemistry is there. It was Coach Matt Potter that just destroyed that team from the inside out. I don't like blaming organizational failure on one guy and losing on one guy, but maybe it was that. But I'm sure it's a welcome change for the Kansas City Current to start winning and to have that chemistry now and to have those younger and newer players making a significant impact. However, there was some pretty cruddy news. Mallory Weber, defender for the Kansas City Current, suffered her second straight season-ending injury. And that is definitely a gut punch, but hopefully can be used as kind of a chip on this team's shoulder to play better for her. We wish her a speedy recovery. That's rough. You never like to see that, because these professional athletes work hard what they do to hone their craft, and to just see it kind of taken away just like that is just really, really, really just disheartening. But we wish her the best. It's a tough road to recovery with knee injuries, and this is no different. She knows that, I'm sure, from her last injury. And hopefully she will be able to see the field once again, and be able to play soccer again. I mean, that's 2 season enders in a row can really put a career in jeopardy. And you just hope that's not what we're going to see with Mallory Weber, because again, you work hard. Those athletes work incredibly hard, because they're professionals. This is their job, and to have that taken away from them is just not great. So that's kind of the bitterness with the sweetness right now. You hope that Kansas City can continue winning for her, as well as for this city. Stadium production for the Kansas City Current's new stadium is going well. I heard that from KCTV5, I believe, that they're just now starting to go upward with the stadium. They're building the high rises and all that for the stands. So that's pretty awesome. They should be finished with it in early 2024, by what I'm hearing. So that's really cool. They're starting to win again, so things are looking up. Yeah, that injury is super disappointing, and the way this season started out for the Kansas City Current was super disappointing. But this is a prime example of an organization being proactive, and Sporting Kansas City can take some notes. This is an organization that is being proactive. This is an organization that is making the changes that need to be made, and this is an organization that's playing with a chip on their shoulder because of the negative media attention that they got. They didn't wallow in the negativity. They used that negativity as fuel to fuel a winning tradition and a winning culture. So big moves by the women over at the Kansas City Current. Their next match, I believe, is a week from now. I believe they're playing in the Challenge Cup at the moment. I think their next draw is going to be that next game. So cheer on the women. No, Sporting Kansas City is not doing great right now, but we have soccer here. I mean, again, like I said in my last podcast episode, soccer is a Kansas City staple. I mean, from the youth level all the way up to the professional level. There's great soccer in this city, and the Kansas City Current is just one facet of it, but it's a facet that you can get excited about. It's a facet that is a professional team doing well, and that's what a lot of people are going to flock to. This whole stigma of, oh, I don't watch women's sports, it's less exciting. Did you not watch the women's Final Four in national championship? It was way more exciting than the men's national championship. UConn swamped everyone on the way to the national title, while the women's Final Four national championship was way more exciting. The teams were a lot more competitive. There was a lot more drama. And, you saw women's basketball at its best, and what it could eventually turn into. And that's a sports league and a sports organization and a facet of sport culture that could turn into something really, really great. And that would be super special for women and for sports in general. So, go support the Kansas City Current. Go support our own little slice of progress and women's sports. And yeah, just go do it. Kansas City Current games are a ton of fun. I highly recommend them. So, all right, last topic before draft news. I promise. Gotta go talk about the Royals real quick. Nick Prado got called up. Freddie Vermes got sent down. I think that is an excellent move. Vermes was not producing, and it's a microcosm of what the Royals should be doing, but it's a step in the right direction. Get Hunter Dozier out of there. Sorry, had a cough. But Prado got called up. The Royals stole a win, really, from the Twins on Saturday. Ended up losing that series, though, and didn't have the best run differential in the whole wide world against the AL Central's best in the Twins. Man, this is just a rough go for baseball this year, if you're a Kansas City Royals fan. Or really, if you're a fan of any team in the AL Central. I mean, the White Sox are terrible this year. The Tigers are terrible this year. The Guardians are, inconsistent, but at least they're better than the three that I just mentioned. And then there's the Twins, who are just dominating a comically weak division. Um, but, there's still some time to improve. I mean, you got this very new management that is not supported by the ownership and the front office, really. um, and they're facing the brunt of the blame for how bad this team has been this year. Um, I'm seeing a lot of similarities between the Oakland A's, who, if you know that whole story, they're the first team ever to achieve five or less wins by the end of April in the entire MLB history, which, by the way, is quite a long time. Um, and overall, just uh, the organizational ineptitude from the Oakland A's is very reminiscent of this Royals organization too. Um, and I hate that comparison because, frankly speaking, Oakland's on the verge of losing their team because of ownership failure and organizational failure. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of the same problems that Oakland has in Kansas City right now with John Sherman. John Sherman's not wanting to spend money on the field product. He's not willing to work with the city on where this potential new stadium might be. In my opinion, they don't have to change it at all. But apparently, John Sherman thinks they have to change it, and that's going to cause a whole mess of issues. Privately funded or not, dude. Do you realize that your on the field product is absolutely terrible? I mean, do you? You have to improve that before you can get any sort of interest, especially if you're expecting taxpayers to pay it forward. I mean, dude, come on. It's not hard to understand that when you don't have a good on the field product, you're not going to garner the support from the city. And again, we see a lot of similarities between the A's and the Royals, which scares me a ton as someone who has been a lifelong Royals fan. I don't want to see the Royals leave this city. I don't want to see the Royals become this organization that has there's no hope. We've got in even worse so, at least Oakland's passionate about their team. I mean, there just seems to be outright apathy towards the Royals. I mean, the attendance numbers reflect that. I mean, there's no, and it probably doesn't help that the Chiefs are good. And it just gives this city apathy and a sense of, okay, this franchise is good and is really successful and has a lot of organizational success. Why isn't this franchise also successful and also organizationally sound? And when it comes to John Sherman, he's not doing anything to help it. In fact, he's actively harming it. And I'm not saying, well, you should just sell the team. I mean, he bought it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? So don't just sell the team yet, but you're not doing anything to make yourself look like a good owner. And really, there's an epidemic of it in the MLB. You look at the Pirates ownership, you look at the A's ownership, you look at the Tigers ownership. I mean, there's the Sox ownership. The White Sox, not Red Sox. Red Sox is pretty solid. It's pretty solid. But there's just this trend of MLB owners being just the greediest human beings possible and wanting to center it around their own self-fulfillment, which is not true. I mean, when you bought this team, you have to have the support of the city because it's the city's team It's the city's team. I mean, it's not your team, dude. Yeah, you're the owner, but what's on the nameplate? What is on the chest of Royals players? It ain't John Sherman, it's Kansas City. And John Sherman needs to treat it like that. So he needs to listen to the fans. He needs to listen to the people that are saying, hey, you need to focus on the on-field product instead of divulging all the money into this stadium pipe dream. I mean, and that's exactly what it is until you get the public support. It's a pipe dream. And until he realizes that this organization is going to continue to suck until you realize that you need to get rid of the contract with Bali, you need to improve the on the field product until you realize that until you get rid of that and improve that, you're not going to get a new stadium. The public's just simply not going to allow it. And if you threaten to move out of Kansas City, i.e. one of the best sports towns in the entire nation, that's going to look super bad. Super bad. I mean, John Sherman is stuck between a rock and a hard place if he wants to continue on this self-fulfillment. He needs to change something. He needs to change the optics on this situation. Otherwise, he's going to screw himself over. Because the city of Kansas City is not going to lose. It's going to be him. So, I don't know. He's going to have a big storm coming if he threatens to move the team, if he still continues to not improve the on-the-field product. I mean, yeah, the apathy is building around this team, and yeah, it's really seeming like people don't care about the Royals anymore. The fact of the matter is they do, but it's a matter of people are not going to the games in protest, more or less, because you can't watch them on TV. So, I don't know. It seems really, really, really unwise of Don Sherman to continue on this journey of self-fulfillment. And that's what it is. So, all right. You waited long enough. Let's talk the draft. In case you were living under a rock, the NFL draft happened in Kansas City this past weekend. And boy, howdy, did it go over interestingly. I have a few thoughts. Don't get me wrong. This was a solid draft by Kansas City. It was. You brought in homegrown talent. You brought in guys that have a high RAS. That's pretty important. If you don't know what RAS is, let me pull up the definition for you. Let me pull up the definition for you. It's called Relative Athletic Score, which is an analytic that combines a prospect's measurables and puts them on a 0 to 10 scale alongside other players at the same position. That's the definition of RAS. And Brett Veach had his highest RAS score from this draft out of any other draft that he's had. So that's something to note. I think he had an average score of like 8.8 or something like that, which is really nice. For reference, his first ever draft had an RAS average score of like 5.5. So he's got good athletic players that can make a difference and can be plug and play even. What bothers me though is the fact that it could have been done better, honestly. I like the pick of Felix Edebuke Uzama. That's a great pick. I mean, he's going to be plug and play. He's going to be a fantastic asset for this team. and he's a local guy. He's born and raised Chiefs fan. That's awesome. To go play for your hometown team that you've had the dream of playing for, that's sick. But yeah, when you have Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, um, and oh gosh, there were a couple other wide receivers that went off the board that I was looking at as well. Just that like string of like picks 20 through 25 or something like that were just all wide receivers basically. I wanted at least one of those guys, and the fact that they went to conference rivals is not great in the Ravens and the Chargers. But um, again, this is a solid pick for where Veach ended up. I did hear that not a whole lot of people were interested in trading with the Super Bowl champions, which fair. But Rashi Rice was a guy that I know the Chiefs had their radar set on for quite a while, so that's a good pickup. He's very, very fast for his size, can get really good separation. He's a great route runner, and overall has pretty good hands. My only worry is that he played at SMU in the Group of Five American Athletic. I kind of would have liked to have seen an SEC wide receiver there and like Jalen Hyatt. Um, but I'll take what I can get, honestly. And Rashi Rice, I think, has the ability to be a very, very successful wide receiver in the NFL. Again, his RAS was really good. His splits were really good. His ability to route run is really good. So, again, a solid pick. Wanya Morris, not the Boys to Men singer Wanya Morris, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Picked in the third round by the Chiefs. Solid pick. Very solid. He played next to Trey Smith at Tennessee before he transferred to Oklahoma. So that's a key connection there. He's a great pass blocker. A little bit inconsistent from what I've seen and heard. But overall, really, really good pick again. I feel like I'm contradicting myself by saying, well, it could have been better. It could have been better. It could have been. In terms of the overall draft grade, I give this draft a B. I mean, it's a solid grade. I don't think a lot of the fan favorites were really looked at by the Chiefs. That there may be reason behind that. Maybe that was strategic by Brett Veach. Maybe a little bit of a Veach black magic sprinkled in there. But overall, I don't mind this draft. I think it's a solid draft, and after coming off of a Super Bowl, that's the best you can ask for, really. You at least I don't know. I really think that the Chiefs had a decent draft. Not great, but decent. So that's a big plus. As far as the rest of the picks, B.J. Thompson, he was a Baylor guy that transferred to Stephen F. Austin. I think after I feel like he had some legal troubles at some point. I'll have to look that up later. But he is an incredibly quick guy with a lot of. I mean, he's one of the most flexible guys, one of the most flexible edges in the draft. He runs a 4.40, and that's an edge running a 4.4. That's terrifying. That is a man that is 6'6", 238 pounds coming at you with a 4.440. Like, that's wild. That's terrifying. And I think he will be a great rotational piece and could develop, especially if he puts on a little bit more weight. Maybe sacrifice the speed a little bit, but you hope not. But if he puts on some weight, that's a scary, scary man. but it the Chiefs filled the needs that they needed to fill. Shamari Connor is a good pick. He's a defensive back. I think if we can't re-sign L'Jarius Sneed, that's going to be a key pick there. I think he's a great hitter. He'll be a rotational player in the secondary. Um, and overall, the Chiefs got their guy because they traded up for him. So Shamari Connor is another pick. B.J. Thompson, we already talked about him. Traded away the round 6 pick. Keandre Coburn out of Texas. He felt like a rock, which kind of concerns me. He's a great run defender, and he's huge. I mean, he's a big old dude, and he's a nose tackle. So that's kind of what the Chiefs were looking for, is just another interior presence, and they got their guy, I feel like, in Coburn. I mean, he's a great Big 12 guy. He showed out in the East-West Shrine Bowl. And overall, just a really solid pick in the 6th round. And then finally, Nick Jones out of Ball State. He'll probably be a special teamer guy, potentially a rotational corner, depending on what he shows in training camp and in preseason. He's got plenty of production. I mean, he's got interceptions to boot and a lot of tackles. So he could definitely make a difference. Kind of a small school guy, MAC guy. A lot of guys love their MAC players, and I think that's a solid pick. Again, overall, I think the Chiefs draft went over decently. Again, not great, not necessarily bad either, though. I think Brett Veach did play it safe, perhaps too safe. I feel like you could have done a little better, but overall, again, you're the defending Super Bowl champs. No one's going to want to trade down for you to pick up another superstar. Like, it's just simply not the case. I mean, I'm baffled that the Bengals traded with us. Like, that's crazy. But I mean, overall, I was one of those guys that was like, oh, we should pick up Deuce Vaughn. We should pick up Quentin Johnston / Zay Flowers. I mean, you saw my mock draft. Matthew Bergeron was up there, and he got picked super early. I had no idea that the Falcons needed a tackle. I thought they had a decent enough offensive line. I mean, they had great run production last year, and Bijan's going to soar now. But they still need a quarterback. But I don't trust Desmond Ridder for a minute. But getting kind of off track here, I think the Chiefs have also done enough to. I mean, the Cardinals were not going to trade during the draft for DeAndre Hopkins. I think they've done enough to secure it to where even if they don't get D-Hop, they've got a solid base of players and a solid base of skill players that Patrick Mahomes can build an offense around. And of course, Matt Nagy, Andy Reid, etc. So overall, again, solid draft. Brett Veach built up the defense too, which was huge. You look at the rookies from last year and how impactful they were. Hopefully, we can expect the same with these guys. So, and then obviously with the free agent pickups of Mike Edwards and Drew Tranquill. I mean, across the board, the defense improved miraculously, and that's huge. So overall, not a bad draft. Yeah. Anyway, that's our show. Thank you for joining me on this little adventure this Sunday evening. Hopefully this will post by later tonight, if not early tomorrow, so that you can watch it or listen to it on your way to work or something like that. But overall, kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover. One more kind of ancillary thing: the Blues had their final match of the spring season. They ended up losing to Wichita 38-10. Wichita's a great second division side, and they really proved it with how well they played today, or how well they played yesterday. Well, from what I saw, the Blues gave it a lot of fight. There should have been, a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda plays, but overall, Blues showed a lot of improvement this spring season. Sevens practice starts May 16th. Mark the calendars if you want to go out and play some sevens. But overall, it was a successful spring season for the Blues. Nothing bad, certainly, and a lot of good came out of it. We definitely saw a lot of guys that could push the envelope for that Division One spot here in the fall, especially if they get fit during sevens. So, but that's our show. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Burn KC ScorchCast signing off. Thank you, and a good night / good day / good week, whatever. Whenever you're watching it, thank you for watching as always. Thank you for reading, and thank you for supporting. I love you. I do.